He thought he was just helping a stranger with a flat tire, but what the man did next, it changed everything. This one act of kindness turned a broke teen's life completely upside down. You won't believe how it ends. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. It all started with a flat tire and a boy with a big heart. It was a warm, breezy afternoon. The kind where the sun lazily drifts behind clouds and the world feels like it's moving in slow motion. School had just let out, and 13-year-old Malik was riding his squeaky old bicycle down a long, empty country road. His backpack bumped rhythmically against his back, and the dirt path curved along green fields that stretched for miles. Malik's bike wasn't in great shape. The tires were a bit bald, the brakes whined loudly, and the chain sometimes slipped, but it got him home. That was all that mattered. His family didn't have much, but Malik never complained. He had learned early on to be resourceful, responsible, and above all, kind. As he pedaled past a bend in the road, something caught his eye. A shiny silver SUV sat tilted on the roadside, one wheel completely flat. The hood was up, and beside the vehicle stood an elderly man in a dark suit, looking bewildered. He was bent over slightly, staring at the deflated tire as if hoping it would magically fix itself. His jacket was dusty, his white shirt wrinkled, and sweat dotted his forehead. Most kids would have glanced at the scene and just kept riding, maybe even avoided it altogether. But not Malik. He slowed down, took one good look, and stopped his bike. Kicking up the kickstand, he walked his way over, wiping his hands on his school pants out of habit. As he got closer, he could see the man was clearly struggling, not just with the tire, but perhaps with the whole situation. "Sir, do you need help?" Malik asked, his voice calm and genuine. The elderly man turned to him, clearly surprised. He wasn't expecting anyone to stop, least of all a teenager. For a second he hesitated. Maybe it was pride, maybe disbelief. But the weariness in his eyes softened, and he gave a tired smile. "I think I do, young man," he replied. Malik didn't wait for more instructions. He walked over to the rear of the car and crouched down to examine the flat. "Looks like you hit a nail or something. Do you have a spare tire in the trunk?" The man nodded. "Yes, but I've never changed one myself." "That's okay," Malik said, brushing gravel from his hands. "I've helped my uncle at his garage a few times. I know what to do." The man watched as Malik moved with quiet confidence. He popped the trunk, pulled out the spare, and found the jack. Piece by piece, he began setting things up. The man offered to help, but Malik shook his head gently. "Just watch your fingers, sir. These bolts can be tricky." As Malik worked, the man stood beside him, still amazed. Who was this boy? Polite, sharp, and so willing to help without even being asked. He glanced at Malik's worn shoes, the small tear in his backpack, and the rusty old bike lying on the side of the road. It told a quiet story. This was a kid who didn't have much, but didn't let that stop him from giving. While loosening the bolts, Malik asked, "You on your way somewhere important?" The man chuckled. "Something like that. A meeting in town. But it's nothing compared to what you're doing right now." Malik didn't really understand what he meant by that. To him, it was just a good deed. Someone was stuck and he had the chance to help. That was it. But to the man, it was something far more rare. In a world full of people too busy, too distracted, or too afraid to help a stranger, this boy, this one kid on an old bike, had stopped. And that decision would change both of their lives forever. The boy with skills. Beyond his years, without wasting a second, Malik dropped his backpack onto the grass beside the road. Dust puffed up as it hit the ground. He rolled up his sleeves and crouched beside the flat tire like a young professional on a mission. There was no hesitation in his movements, just quiet focus and confidence. He'd done this before, not for a shiny SUV like this, but for beat-up sedans and pickup trucks at his uncle's garage. Uncle Jerome had taught him everything he knew: how to handle tools, how to read a situation calmly, and most importantly, how to help people without expecting anything in return. As Malik slid the jack under the SUV and began cranking it up, the elderly man stood back, watching in surprise. His name was Mr. Reynolds, and from the sharp cut of his suit and the polished watch on his wrist, it was clear he wasn't used to being stranded or getting help from strangers, especially not from a teenager in a worn-out school uniform. "You're really good at this," Mr. Reynolds said, bending slightly to get a closer look. Malik looked up with a proud but humble grin. "Thanks. My uncle owns a garage just outside town. I help out there when I'm not in school." Mr. Reynolds nodded thoughtfully. "Well, it shows. You work with a steady hand. That's rare these days." Malik chuckled as he loosened the bolts on the flat tire. "Uncle Jerome always says a shaky hand breaks more than it fixes." Mr. Reynolds smiled at the boy's ease and maturity. Most kids his age were glued to phones, but here was Malik, calmly handling a flat like a seasoned mechanic. As Malik worked, the two began to talk. There was no awkwardness, just a natural flow, like two people meant to cross paths. Mr. Reynolds asked, "So, do you want to take over your uncle's garage one day?" Malik paused for a moment, then answered, "Actually, I want to do more than that. I want to be a mechanical engineer. Design engines. Maybe even build cars one day." There was a spark in his voice. A dream not just imagined, but deeply believed. Mr. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. "That's a big dream." Malik nodded without hesitation. "Yeah, I know it won't be easy, but I'm working on it. I keep my grades up, I help at the shop, and, well, I try to learn from every chance." "I get." Mr. Reynolds was silent for a moment, observing the boy with new eyes. Malik wasn't just handy, he was driven. That kind of quiet ambition, that came from something deeper. "What about your parents?" he asked gently. "My mom's amazing," Malik said proudly. "She works 2 jobs, at the diner and the night shift at the hospital. She's the reason I keep pushing. She doesn't want me to end up struggling like she did." There was no bitterness in Malik's voice, just love and determination. "What about your dad?" Mr. Reynolds asked softly. Malik shrugged. "He left when I was 5. I barely remember him. It's just me and Mom now. And Uncle Jerome when he's not too busy." Mr. Reynolds looked down for a moment, as if processing more than just a tire change. He was beginning to realize this boy wasn't just helping with a car. He was showing him something he hadn't seen in a long time. Raw, genuine goodness and hope. As Malik tightened the last bolt on the spare tire, he looked up and wiped sweat from his forehead. "All done, sir." Mr. Reynolds glanced at the car, then back at Malik. "Tell me something," he asked. "What made you stop? You didn't have to. Most people would have just kept going." Malik smiled, the kind of smile that came from being raised right. "My mom always says, if you can help, then help. Doesn't matter who it is." Mr. Reynolds didn't say anything right away. He just nodded slowly, a hint of something deep behind his eyes. And in that quiet moment, something powerful passed between them, a connection, rooted not in age or wealth, but in values. Neither of them knew it yet, but this ordinary act of kindness on a dusty country road was about to change everything. A mysterious offer. The job was done. The spare tire was securely in place, the bolts tightened, and the car lowered gently back to the ground. Malik stood up, wiping his hands on his pants. A thin layer of dust clung to his sleeves, and sweat clung to his brow, but he looked completely at ease, like helping a stranger on the side of the road was just another part of his afternoon. Mr. Reynolds, brushing his suit off and adjusting his tie, walked over with a grateful expression on his face. He opened his wallet and pulled out a crisp $20 bill. "You've earned this," he said, holding it out. But Malik shook his head gently. "No, sir. I didn't help for money. I just thought you needed a hand. Mr. Reynolds paused, arms still, extended, caught completely off guard. In his world, a world filled with business meetings, contracts, and people doing things only for what they could gain, this kind of response was rare. Almost extinct. Are you sure? He asked. Malik nodded with a calm confidence. My mom always says you don't charge for kindness, especially when someone's stuck. Mr. Reynolds slowly lowered the money back into his wallet, his eyes still fixed on the boy. It wasn't just the act of kindness that struck him. It was how naturally Malik gave it. No expectation, no hesitation. Just genuine, unfiltered humanity. You know, Mr. Reynolds began, a thoughtful tone settling into his voice. Most adults wouldn't have stopped, let alone a kid. Malik shrugged, smiling modestly. Well, I figured it's not every day a fancy car like this ends up stuck out here. Someone had to help. That made Mr. Reynolds laugh, a real, warm laugh that echoed briefly across the quiet fields. Then his tone shifted. Tell me, what's your full name? Malik hesitated, unsure why it mattered. Malik Carter. And where do you go to school? Jefferson Middle. Just a few miles that way, Malik said, pointing down the road. Mr. Reynolds nodded as if filing the information away in some mental ledger. There was something unreadable in his expression, half curiosity, half intent. Well, Malik Carter of Jefferson Middle, he said, extending a hand. Thank you. You may not realize it yet, but what you did today might just change your life. Malik shook his hand, still not sure what to make of the man's words. Change his life? That seemed a little dramatic for just helping with a flat tire, but he smiled and nodded anyway. I'm glad I could help. Mr. Reynolds opened the car door, started the engine, and looked back at Malik one more time before driving off. I'll see you again, son. Malik waved as the SUV rolled. Away down the empty road, the sound of the engine fading into the breeze. He didn't think too much about it. After all, he had homework to do and dinner to help cook when he got home. He grabbed his backpack, slung it over his shoulder, and hopped back on his bike. As he pedaled away, he glanced back once at the spot where the SUV had been parked, then kept riding. But what he didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that Mr. Reynolds was no ordinary man. Behind the modest gray suit and dusty car was a retired millionaire, a former CEO who now dedicated his time and fortune to helping young people, especially those who reminded him of a younger version of himself. And Malik, he had just made an impression that would echo far beyond that dusty road, because sometimes the smallest act of kindness is the spark that lights a life-changing fire. The big surprise 2 weeks had passed since Malik helped the man with the flat tire. Life had returned to its usual rhythm: school, chores, helping his mom, and the occasional afternoons at his uncle's garage. So when Malik was suddenly called to the principal's office during math class, his heart skipped a beat. His mind raced. Did I do something wrong? Did I forget a form? His classmates gave him curious looks as he packed up his books and walked nervously down the hall. But when he stepped inside the office, everything stopped. Sitting in the chair, across from the principal, was Mr. Reynolds. But this time, he looked like someone from a movie. Gone was the dusty old suit. Instead, he wore a crisp designer blazer, polished shoes, and a watch that probably cost more than Malik's family. Malik's eyes widened. Mr. Reynolds stood and smiled. Malik, he said warmly, I told you I'd find a way to thank you. Malik stood frozen, confused, grateful, still not entirely sure what was happening. The principal, who was usually strict and serious, looked like she was holding back a grin. Mr. Reynolds has something very important to tell you, she said, nodding for him to continue. Mr. Reynolds stepped forward and placed a hand gently on Malik's shoulder. Malik, he began, there's something I didn't tell you the day we met. He paused, I'm not just a man with a flat tire. I'm a retired CEO. I used to run one of the largest car manufacturing companies in the world. And now that I'm retired, I spend my time looking for young people like you. Kids with heart, integrity, and potential. Kids who deserve a chance. Malik's eyes grew even wider. Wait, you build cars? Mr. Reynolds smiled. Used. Too. Now I help build futures. And then came the moment that would change Malik's life forever. I'm offering you a full scholarship, all the way through college, every year, every book, every supply. And not just that, he added, watching. Malik's jaw slowly drop. I want to sponsor your dream to become a mechanical engineer. When the time comes, I'll even help you start your own garage. For a few seconds, Malik couldn't speak. Then he whispered, Are you serious? Dead serious, Mr. Reynolds replied. You gave without asking for anything, and that kind of heart deserves to be recognized and rewarded. The principal picked up the phone. I think it's time we called your mom. 15 minutes later, Mrs. Carter burst through the office door, breathless and confused. Her hair still had strands from her diner shift, and her hospital badge hung from her neck. She thought something was wrong. But when Mr. Reynolds repeated the news to her, tears streamed down her face. You're giving my son a scholarship? She asked, holding her chest. And a future, Mr. Reynolds replied, because he earned it. She pulled Malik into a hug, her hands trembling. This is everything we prayed for, she whispered into his ear. Malik couldn't stop smiling, but deep down, he knew something more important had happened. It wasn't about the money or the scholarship. It was about the fact that someone saw his kindness and chose to believe in his dream, all because of a flat tire, all because he stopped when others wouldn't. And as Mr. Reynolds left the school that day, Malik stood in the doorway, watching the man's car disappear down the road. But this time, it wasn't a goodbye. It was the beginning of something incredible. Kindness comes full circle. Months passed, but the impact of Malik's simple act of kindness continued to ripple far beyond that rural road. The story of the 13-year-old boy who helped a stranger fix a flat tire and ended up receiving a life-changing opportunity went viral. News outlets picked it up. Social media lit up with shares, comments, and hashtags like Malik's Miracle and Kindness Wins. People from across the country were moved by the story of a young boy who gave without expecting anything in return and received everything he ever dreamed of. But Malik? He stayed grounded. The newfound attention didn't change who he was at his core. He still woke up early, helped his mom around the house, and studied harder than ever before. Thanks to Mr. Reynolds' scholarship, Malik enrolled in one of the top engineering programs in the country. He excelled, not just because he was smart, but because he was driven by purpose. He never forgot the reason behind his success. Years later, after graduating with honors and spending time working in the auto industry, Malik returned to his hometown. The first thing he did was purchase a piece of land near the very road where he had once helped a man in need. There, he built something special. Malik's Roadside Angels, an auto repair shop with a mission. It wasn't just a business. It was a tribute to the power of kindness and a beacon of hope for his community. His shop did more than fix cars. It trained teenagers. Malik launched a free youth mentorship and apprenticeship program, open to kids from all walks of life. Young people who had never touched a wrench before were learning real-world skills, changing oil, fixing engines, building confidence. He taught them not just how to repair vehicles, but how to carry themselves with pride and purpose. I was once just like you, he would tell them. And all it took was one choice, one moment, one act of kindness that changed everything. Malik's Roadside Angels quickly became a local legend, and then a national example. He was featured on talk shows, honored by community leaders, and invited to speak at schools and youth summits. But he never forgot the road he traveled to get there. or the man who helped make it all possible. Mr. Reynolds remained a part of Malik's life, not as a benefactor, but as a mentor and friend. The two often spoke at events together, sharing the message that kindness, character, and courage can open doors no amount of money ever could. Malik's shop had a small framed photo near the front desk, an old snapshot of a silver SUV with a flat tire on a dusty road. Beside it, a plaque read, "One good deed can change your direction. Sometimes, even your entire life." When people asked Malik what motivated him most, he always gave the same answer, with humility in his voice and a warm smile on his face. "I didn't help him because I wanted something. I helped him because it was the right thing to do." But, sometimes, life surprises you in the most beautiful ways. And in the quiet moments when no one was around, Malik would often look out at the road beyond his shop, the same road where it all began, and smile. Because he knew one thing for sure: kindness doesn't just change moments, it changes futures. In a world where people walk by without looking back, one boy stopped. A flat tire, a kind heart, and a millionaire in disguise. Proof that kindness can change your destiny. Share this story if you believe small acts can create big miracles. If this story touched your heart, don't just scroll away, spread the message. Drop a comment below telling us, what would you do if you were in Malik's shoes? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a story that restores your faith in humanity. Until next time, keep your heart open, your hands ready, and your spirit kind, because you never know when your moment to change someone's life will come.